Oh, there's one of my favorite sayings: aim small, miss small. And this is going to be a long video because I got a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to teach you how I learned it back in the mid 80s. And it stuck with me because it was so vivid. Aim small, miss small. And it's like, wait a minute, 80s, nobody knew the aim small, miss small mantra until The Patriot come out with Mel Gibson. You know, when Braveheart told his kids that before they shot him up at the convoy going through? Well, it was before that. In fact, Fred Bear used it often. That was one of his sayings. But he didn't think of it either. In fact, its origin is in the Mahabharata. The what? The Mahabharata, which is an Indian or Hindu epic written in the 3rd BC. That's before Christ. 300, possibly 400 years before Christ. And in that epic, which by the way, if you go search for it, it's going to be tough because that Mahabharata is one of the longest poem, or the longest poem ever written. But it's a novel, an epic like the Iliad and the Odyssey, except, I do know this, if you took the Iliad and the Odyssey and put them both together, it is 10 times larger than both of them together. That's a lot of work. So you can go search for it anyway. But in the middle of that Mahabharata is a story about a king who needed an archer to lead his archers. He needed the king's archer. He needed a new one, I guess. And in order to do this, what he did was he put a fish on a pole. And he put the pole out in the field, way up high. And he called all the archers in the whole place to come to shoot at that fish. And the one that got closest to the eye would be the king's archer, would lead all his archers. So folks shot at the fish and they'd miss, and they'd shoot the fish and they'd miss, and they'd shoot the fish on top of that pole way over there and they'd miss. And then finally one guy shoots and he hits the eye of the fish. King's impressed. He says, hey, you're my archer now. You're going to lead my archers. But tell me, how did you do that? He said, well, I aimed at the eye of the fish. Everybody was trying to hit a fish on a pole, yet he aimed for the eye of the fish because that was the target. Okay, so that was the origin of the aim small, miss small lesson that I learned sometime in the mid-80s. And here's how I learned it. Back when I was a kid, young man just shooting bows, aluminum arrows. I made a range behind my house down through the woods that had 18, 20 targets, hay bales stacked up, carpet laid over row, over post, whatever. And I would spray paint a target on there. And it was such an awesome range. I had uphill, downhill shots. You'd walk up to a 4x4 in the ground and you may have to lean over and shoot under a big old limb that comes out across there to hit a deer target. And the next one might be downhill at about 30 degrees. And anyway, there was all kinds of good, hard shots to try to make you learn the arc of that arrow and avoid things in the shot path and making good shots. And I didn't invite my friends over, we'd shoot, we'd have tournaments, we'd try to shoot, like hit the heart was 5 points, the kill zone was 3 points, animal was 1 point, miss, nothing. So we'd do a game where we'd shoot that. And of course they'd come shoot, and they'd bring friends to shoot, so it got shot a lot. And over the course of time, my targets would show a pattern really well. And they would start shooting at it. And over a long period of time, one case, I had a big elk, full-size elk painted on there with a full-size heart and lung like that right there. And yeah, sure, people would hit that heart pretty regular. And they'd hit the lungs, but they'd miss the lungs. And they'd get all around it. Boy, you could see them miss pattern just over time in that carpet. You'd see some. And my cousin would shoot. Yeah, so you'd see that pattern develop in that carpet of all those hit shots. And then this was exactly 30 yards. Your toes on the board, it was a 30-yard dead flat shot. It should have been easy to get right here. The very next target after it was again a dead flat 30-yard shot. There was no change in the two shots, except one was going that direction, one was going that direction. But the miss pattern of all those same people, nearly everybody would hit the rabbit, but the miss pattern wasn't much bigger than the rabbit, because everybody was aiming at the heart of the rabbit, and their miss, the heart of the rabbit was only just a spray paint. The elk's heart over here was that big around. It was huge. Had to draw a circle and fill it in with spray paint. But over a long period of time, and I'm talking about 1,000 arrows before that carpet would wear out, you would see the pattern. And it ain't until you get past that shot you realize, holy cow, you know, this rabbit would have fit in that kill zone over here 2, maybe 3 times. They should have been missing at a range, you know, that much. How big was that? Here on this board, 3 inches. When they aimed at a pattern and they had this probability of hitting that target and scoring points, this is where they missed. When they had to hit just this, particularly that to score a point, they missed very little. And the aim small, miss small developed right there. And I got to go answer the door, so I'll be right back. All right, so hopefully everybody can see from all the work I did on that target range and all my buddies shooting over time, the concept of aim small, miss small, the mentality of picking a tiny spot to hit, even on a big old elk, will serve you better. If it's a hair, a tick, a mark, a change of color, the finest point you can pick is what you should aim at. Now, of course, in the comments somebody's going to say, hey, that's Fred Bear saying, because they didn't watch the whole video. And all kudos and respect to Fred Bear for teaching a lot of folks that lesson. That's probably where I heard it first. But it comes from Mahabharata, 300 years before Christ. Anyway, aim small, miss small. Even with a rifle, aim small, miss small. You'll connect, be a better hunter. Good luck.